Hi there again, sports lovers. Rob here from the Unlikely Triathlete. Welcome to another wonderful episode. So, got an amazing guest today. Truly, actually quite honored. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. A friend of a friend has put me in touch with none other than Bradley Weiss. So, he's started out, I think, winning the under 23 cross triathlon world championships. I think that's where it really kicked off for him. 2 times Xterra world champion, also a winner of multiple 70.3s. And I believe you've also set a course record on one of those in South Africa. I want to ask you a question about which one that was. A bit of a star on the show today, and you might be thinking, why the unlikely triathlete? Why on earth would I have a guy like Brad on here? Well, it's not always about the likely athletes. I'm sure Brad's got some stories to tell us as well. But as always, Brad, on the show here, it's always about inspiring people and all those doubters and naysayers, that just feel they're not good enough and that type of thing. So we're going to go down that road today, but absolutely welcome to the show, man. And how's things going your end?
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob. Really appreciate it. And thanks for the kind words and intro. Great to be on with you and have a bit of a chat about triathlon and my journey within the sport of triathlon. I'm down in Nature's Valley at the moment, bit of a break away from the triathlon scene and doing a 42K trail run called the Otter Trail Run this coming weekend. So something a little bit different, and using my fitness within a different sport is actually quite nice. I'm not sure what my sort of technical skills will where that would leave me within a field of really accomplished trail runners. Something I'm really looking forward to, and kind of ending the year on a high note.
Oh, it's awesome. We were talking before the show earlier. I've been down that way. I've done the hike there with my old man many years ago, and I do know it's a really technical course. But I think your running is your strength. If I've got that correctly, you're more of a runner than anything else, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Of the three sports, is probably the one that I am drawn to, or pulled towards the most. But this is a different beast, running on, I think the first like 5 or 6 Ks is literally just on rocks. So it's pretty difficult to use your speed on the track when you're hopping from one rock to the next. So I'm hoping to tap into my Xterra days and remember how to move well and fluidly and efficiently over technical terrain. But anyway, I might lose a bit of time up like to the front guys in the beginning, and then hopefully can pull them back once the trail flattens out a little bit, and I can use my speed from the road a little bit to pull a few guys back in. But not really here for a result, more just to like reconnect with nature a little bit, and the triathlon and the trail running community are actually quite similar in that way, like all very supportive and encouraging, but in the end of the day, just like wanting to lead a fit and healthy lifestyle. And that's kind of the reason that we're out here.
Yeah, 100%. We'll talk about that a little bit more on. I've got a few questions for you on that one later. So I guess everyone starts somewhere. So tell me a little bit about where it was. I believe your old man was involved at some stage, signed you and your brothers up to something. Was that the beginnings of sport or ultra or multisport for you? Or were you always a bit of a sporty guy at school growing up anyways?
Yeah, so I played sort of the traditional South African sports growing up, rugby, cricket, and those sort of team sports coming through my schooling days. And then when I went to university, I was sort of looking for a new challenge. At the time, I was pretty small for a rugby player, so I'd had 1 or 2 injuries and broken collarbones and stuff, and I decided, this is probably not for me anymore. And decided to, as you mentioned there, my dad signed us up for a triathlon, and I just like absolutely loved it. Obviously it was like super beginner. It was a sprint road triathlon that we ended up doing on mountain bikes on the road. So it was like really basic, just sort of grabbed out the garage whatever we needed, and went off and did the race, and I just really loved it, and sort of the bug bit pretty quickly. And then from there, just continued to kind of chase that continuous small improvements within triathlon. It's really like, it's kind of addictive in some ways, that those little small gains that you get going from week to week. And as a beginner, you just improve so quickly that it was really like enjoyable. And just sort of one thing led to the next. And here we are 15 years later, and I'm racing professionally. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. You know what? That's kind of like the essence of what I'm trying to get down to with this whole podcast, hey, Brad, is that people don't realize, man, and you know, it's the weekend warriors and average Joes. I'm an average Joe, right? I mean, I've done loads of racing and stuff, but I'm not out there breaking records and winning medals and stuff. But I absolutely get that. First one you do. I mean, it was years ago. At end of my military days, we all had to conscript back in the day, you know. And it was literally at the end of my 2 years in the army. And one of the guys said, "Hey, there's a triathlon in Bloemfontein this weekend. We're going to enter a team." And it was a sprint try. You know, we need a swim. I said, "Yeah, I can swim because swimming is my strength, right?" And I had no idea. So one of the guys, I swam and someone else rode a bike and someone else ran. And I was like, bugger this, I want to do the whole lot myself. And that bit me there, you know. I did a bunch of sprint tries and then ended up years down the line, life happens and all that shit. And only really took it up again in 2017 and then started straight out with the 70.3s, you know. And it was quite a big gap in between, but I'd always sort of done something, running or cycling or long swims and that type of thing. But absolutely the bug bites, and people don't realize what they're capable of. You just start off with that one sprint, you know. And so here's a perfect example. You were looking for something else, and it's actually taking you all the way to the professional level, you know. And you talk about that addiction, eh? And it is. It's almost an instant addiction, eh? You just all of a sudden you just want to do it more. There's so many aspects to triathlon. That's what I like about it a lot, you know. So I don't know, man. I like to speak to guys like you because you might have some pearls of wisdom that I haven't picked off those trees yet. To those guys that are thinking about it and going like, oh, you know, they're such great athletes and I'll never be able to do this. Like, what do you reckon? What should we say to these guys? How do we get them off the couch and across that finish line, man?
Yeah, unfortunately, like the sport of triathlon, it seems very daunting to the man on the street. You know, they like kind of look at it and you know, if you I think it's important to maybe like not focus on the longer distance. And a lot of guys sort of say, oh, they want to do triathlon. And then it's like the first question is, have you done an Ironman? You know, it's like, it's not really necessary to, to do that as your first triathlon or to have that as a goal. I think like developing the grassroots level of the sport, and like the way I got in is through a sprint triathlon. It was like the Western Province Championships. Just a small little race in Langebaan, which was amazing for me. So I think having that focus to try and grow the sport and sort of shorter distances that I think just seems a bit more attainable for your average Joe. But in the end of the day, I think it sounds a lot more daunting than what it actually is. And I think a lot more people can actually complete, whether it be a sprint distance race or an Olympic or middle distance or even up to a full. So yeah, I think just having the confidence to back yourself and dive in at the deep end. That's generally when we learn the most about ourselves and life lessons along the way. But yeah, I would encourage people to at least give it a go and do one of these crazy triathlons in their lives.
Absolutely, man. You know what it is? It's just making a start, eh? And it's like you say, you don't have to do that long one because I say, I mean, I'm a coach as well now, and I've only got a handful of guys that I'm coaching at the moment, guys and gals. But you know, I always say to them that first, you've just got to make that start. One guy's Ironman race is another guy's 5K park run, right? And I've got a couple of athletes that started out would never run. Oh, I'll never be a runner. And they download these apps where you go from couch to 5K. And they go, oh, actually, I can do that 5K. Oh, I want to try a little sprint. I don't have a bicycle. Borrow one from a mate. It's a swimming pool swim. And you just go from there. And that's really where I'm trying to get in now, is just to encourage people to go and pick on that first thing. So many people I know get inspired by going to an Ironman race at 70.3. They listen to that mayhem on the beach when everyone's singing and chanting and cheering, and then that gun goes off or whatever it is, and everyone gets in the water. As a spectator, I think that swings most people to think, geez, I've got to do something, because they see the array of people. And that's where I came up with this whole Unlikely Triathlete thing, because one of my athletes was most inspired by going to a race and seeing what she saw there. And I always say, with all the love and respect in my heart, because you guys at the pro end of it, the sharp end of the stick, are just phenomenal. But that's what you guys do for a living, right? That's your job. That's the kind of thing. And it's all those weekend warriors in between that stick out more, because you see the guy who's 130, 140 kilos on a bicycle, or you see the guy with the missing limbs, or the guy with a guide because he's blind, or someone who's, and you think, shit, if they're doing it, what's my excuse, you know? And then from there to make that decision to take on something a little easier, start somewhere, just get off the couch and get over there and get on with it. That's kind of what I look at when I'm trying to convince people to get on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also just like, I mean, maybe it's a bit too philosophical, but it's like, what's the reason of living, right? Is like to have these big goals that seem almost insurmountable, and once you accomplish them, you feel a lot of self-worth and self-value, where you finishing first in that race or last. Crossing the finish line is a massive accomplishment, especially over the full distance. So it's awesome to see everybody's stories, and yeah, it's also just a great community to be a part of, and everybody's very encouraging of one another. I mean, if you rock up to any triathlon and you then the early hours of the morning and you've potentially forgotten some swimming goggles or a race cap or something, there's always somebody to help you out, to lend a helping hand, and sort of like everybody's in it together. And at the end of the day, that beer tastes a lot better than having sat on the couch watching others, living a life that you could do yourself.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know what? That community thing, it is. It's super strong. I've actually come across where guys actually lent someone a bike. His bike didn't turn up on the plane. It's just it is. It's unbelievable. And even though I'm a coach, I've got no issue with people joining clubs while we're coaching them and training them, because the camaraderie you get there and the support. You know what? People are like, oh, I can't afford a suit, or I haven't got a wetsuit. You go to a club and someone's, hey man, I've got half a dozen of those. I'll lend you one. Hey, you can have this one. And you're absolutely right. And all of a sudden you get inspired to get up and get going and do that kind of thing. And I think another you touched on there, one of the big aspects for me of people getting involved in things like this and just going one step at a time, slowly do that first 5K, do a sprint, build your way up, work your way up. You're not only getting better physically and achieving those goals. I say don't do the easy stuff. Do the stuff that you think you can maybe not get, or you're not sure you can get. Because when you achieve that, you'll attack something a little higher the next time and you'll go. But what it does for your mental health, over and above your physical health, the way you approach life, the confidence it gives you in your job and your work and the business you own and whatever like that. I just say to people, man, having experienced it myself, it's taken me a long way from some really dark places as well, and having an experience of myself, what I find is I can never find the words to explain that feeling to people, or that achievement to people. The only way to get there is to actually experience it yourself, and you just got to make that start with that small thing. But yeah, so
Absolutely.
one of the questions I wanted to ask you as well. So Xterra, so for the guys that don't know, the viewers and the listeners, Xterra, it's triathlon, right? But it's more like the off-road thing. What are the sort of distances involved there with the Xterra, the ones in particular that you do?
Yeah, so Xterra is essentially an Olympic distance race. If you compare it to the road racing distances, it's a 1.5 kilometer swim, and then about a 30-kilometer mountain bike ride, and then 10-kilometer trail run. Obviously, it's off road, so the distances are never exact, and it always sort of fluctuates. But the winning times are right around sort of 2 hours to 2 hours 10 minutes, depending on the course and the terrain.
Okay.
And yeah, it's obviously quite a bit shorter than an Ironman race. And being off road was definitely what was very appealing to me. I really enjoyed riding my mountain bike and being in nature, and sort of developing the skills on that side of things just seemed a lot more appealing to me. I was also not the greatest swimmer when I started triathlon, so the road racing stuff was a little bit beyond my reach. Whereas Xterra, I could kind of lose a bit of time in the water, but then make it back on the mountain bike and still kind of be in contention for a good result by the end of the run. Whereas like the Olympic distance racing format, the guys who were actually gunning for the Olympic Games, they all came from very strong swimming backgrounds, and um, in that format of racing, you really need to be a strong swimmer. So unfortunately, I kind of missed that boat because I was a very weak swimmer starting my triathlon journey. But yeah, I was very grateful that I had sort of the Xterra route to develop my triathlon skills. And then after winning my second Xterra World title in 2019, I decided to go back to the road and kind of just explore that side of it. My first 70.3 was in East London in 2018, I think it was. And the first, I remember crossing the line. I think I was third or fourth in the race, and I told my wife, like, I'll never do another one of these. That was the
Classic.
hardest thing I've ever done. And then all of a sudden it was all I was focused on doing. So deep down, I think we actually enjoy the hard stuff more than we like the easy stuff. And yeah, I think again, it just comes back to that feeling of accomplishment and that sense of achievement, something that seemed so daunting to you and almost like unreachable. And all of a sudden it's like the thing that you almost most well known for is pretty cool journey.
100%, man. And you know what? I like the fact you touched on the swimming there, hey, because you know what? You probably know as well as I do. That's probably one of the most common excuses outside of I don't have enough time is that, oh, I'm not a good swimmer and I'm a shit swimmer or I just can't swim, you know? And I always say to people, you can take any living creature and throw it in the water. It will swim. It might drown eventually, but it'll swim initially, you know? So we just kind of got to tweak that. And those are those little pearls that come up on these episodes. And I'm sitting talking to a world pro, a world champion, who's there saying, I'm a really bad swimmer. I'm obviously quite good now, but people have that doubt. I can't do it because I can swim. Here's a perfect example. I'm going to shout out now to the guys listening and watching the show. There's a perfect example. If you just take it on, someone will show you, and there is a way. We've all got that ability in us. I 100% believe that. I've got no doubt that absolutely everyone has got that ability to get there. You might not win it or be the world champ or go, but you can absolutely damn do that thing, you know? So you said you went on the road and you found that tougher. So I've only ever done one off-road triathlon. It was one of the first ones I did. It was up the north coast of Durban there. I'm trying to remember that, Tunzini or something like that. And it bucketed with rain. It was absolute disaster, mud. Brilliant race. We swam in a river, and the swim was my strength, so I did okay. The bicycles, you just couldn't change gears after the first loop, and I think it was about a 7 loop through the cane fields. It was magic, absolute magic. And I got to say, I enjoyed it a lot more. But certainly, and I've done a few trail runs with some mates, and you know, you think you're fit and you're healthy until you get on a trail, eh? It's a completely different ball game, eh? But so you transitioned the other way around. You went from the off-road stuff to the 70.3s on the road, and you say you found that harder. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, saying it's harder is maybe not the correct way. It just felt a lot more brutal because, like, you know, you come out the water, get on a time trial bike, and it's like, okay, you're gonna go 45 k's in this direction, go around a turn buoy or a turning circle, and come back another 45 k's. It's just, yeah, it just seemed like really physically demanding. Whereas with Xterra, you know, you have all the technical side that comes with it. Practicing descents, you know, I would usually with an Xterra race, I'd travel out to the venue a week in advance and pre-ride the course 4 or 5 times before the race itself, and learn all the descents. And it just seemed like mentally it was a bit easier because you were focused on the technical aspects and not just the suffering, where it seemed like with the Ironman side, it was just suffering. There wasn't much to think about. So that was definitely a learning curve for me. And also just not coming from a time trialing background, it took me a bit of time to get comfortable on the TT bike. But then obviously as I ventured a little bit more into the sport, I found courses that potentially suited me a little bit better. And in 2019, I raced my first 70.3 World Championships, which was in Nice. And I went up some pretty big climbs, and that was it really suited me well, coming from like a mountain biking background.
Okay.
And I think I finished 7th at that World Championships. So that was my first like kind of step into the road, or into the world of road racing, or at least the Ironman format of triathlon racing. And the bugger then really bit in, and then I really wanted to like venture into that discipline a bit more and see how far I could take it.
Oh, that's awesome. I can only imagine that coming from that background, you're better on the hills. I'll tell you what, I'm absolutely crap on the hills, right? So I really am, and I'm working on it. I've actually got a coach at the moment now trying to help me through that. I'm racing in Bustle. I raced in Weymouth last week, which was just a practice run for me, really. And I'm racing Bustle at the end of the year. Now, I've done the full Ironman in Bustleton, and that's a long, flat, straight. If the wind gets up a bit, it could slow you down. But that's 180 k's of head down and cranking, you know. And so, I mean, I'm a skinny little guy, and I'm pretty aerodynamic. And I find if I'm going down the hills or on the flats or into the wind, I'm right up there, you know. But as soon as it gets to the hills, the guys are literally just flying past me. You know what I mean? So horses for courses, you know, I guess. But yeah, I totally get that. I've did where we were talking about Lanzarote was horrendous. There was like 2.5 Ks worth of climbing. I think it was just not the race for me. So yeah, you pick the races where it's a bit better, you know. Have you raced in
Sure.
Durban? Was one of the 70.3s you did in Durban? Was that 2019?
Yeah, quite a while ago. I can't remember the year, but I think it was maybe Durban Ultra that I did,
Okay.
one of the ultra events.
Yeah.
But yes, I have done that race. I think a lot of the courses use a similar, or a lot of the races use a similar course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've done that one. It's pretty flat and fast
You
from
know,
what I
it
remember.
on the Ironman circuit, you know, they have the athletes vote best run course, best ride course, and I think 2 years in a row now that Durban course ride course has been voted from the athlete side the best ride course in the world. So I've done two ultras in Durban, same course up that M4, and I did that 2019. I think it was. I think it was at the same race you were at. I was just behind you, man. You know, wherever it was. 2019, the Ironman 70.3 there. Yeah, super, super. That's my favorite track to ride. It's a really, really cool race to ride, you know. Really
Yeah,
cool. So yeah, at the end of the day, did I ask you this? What's your preference now? Do
between Ironman and Xterra.
yeah, Xterra and off-road and on-road? I know it's something different.
Yeah, I
So
think. I mean, if it's from just a pure enjoyment factor, it's probably Xterra. I love riding my mountain bike. I love being off road. Very excited about this trail run that I'm doing this weekend. It definitely, I don't know, it probably excites me a little bit more than going out and doing an Ironman race. But it's a different kind of challenge. I really enjoy the preparation that goes into an Ironman, and the weeks and months of really hard graft to get yourself ready for this one big day. I do enjoy that side of it, and obviously that's a lot more of like a high end elite performance goal. Whereas, like this weekend, for example, I'll still push myself to the limit and go as fast as my body will allow. But it's more of like enjoying the environment, enjoying being out in nature, and um, yeah, it was weird. I was running on the trails this week, and I haven't been on trails in a few years now. And it just, my body feels so much more at ease almost,
okay,
running in the mountains. And it's almost like this is what the human body was built for in some ways. And running on a concrete path for 42 Ks and just absolutely brutally beating your legs to pulp. It's probably not what the human body is. I mean, we can get really good at it and really efficient at it, which is great. But I think we were, built to be on trail and having a bit more of a dynamic environment to run through.
yeah,
My body just feels so much more comfortable and at ease on that type of terrain. So yeah, if you coming back to your question of which one I enjoy, it's definitely the off-road side of it.
yeah.
But in the end of the day, I have a family and have to pay bills, and Ironman is just a much bigger brand, that allows, from a financial side of things, to make a living out of the sport and do it as a professional.
Oh, that's awesome, man. You know what? That's another thing. Hey, it's like do what you love, man. And if you're any good at it, the money will come, right? And I mean, I'm nowhere near the level of you guys, but I gave up my day job the end of last year, which was completely different field to what I'm doing now. This is a passion and a love that I've taken up. So I've recently transitioned to this whole coaching thing, but now here I am making a living out of something I love, you know? So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely back and support that 100%. So down at Otter Trail there, I mean, for the guys that don't know where that is, watching or listening to this podcast, that's a coastal run. And I think a lot of the time when you do these trail runs, you're often up in the mountains, so you're dealing with altitude there. So I imagine that might have an impact on some better times and a bit more oxygen, or do you think that that's not really going to be a factor, being at sea
Yeah,
level?
so I just came off a pretty big prep for the Ironman World Champs, which was in Nice, and I did a month at altitude in Livigno to prepare for that.
Yeah.
So I feel like aerobically I'm really strong, and I hopefully I can use this extra oxygen to my advantage this weekend. But I think the technical aspect or technical nature of the course, as you said, the Otter Trail Run is actually it's a 5-day hike that I believe that you've done the hike, right,
Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
So that's generally it takes people almost a week to complete this route. It's going to do, and we're going to do it in 4 hours. So it's a bit of a different challenge for us. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how my body holds up against it. But I'm like relatively confident that I can do pretty well, at least like sort of fight for a top 10. But yeah, it is along the coast. So we never do like any massive climbs of like, climbing for an hour that you would get if you went and raced in the like the mountains of Europe. But the climbs are sort of these shorter, maybe 200 meters of elevation maximum, and then you descend again. So it's kind of like quite jagged and up and down.
Yeah.
Which over the period of the entire race, I think will actually become quite it'll break you down quite a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how my body holds up to it.
Hey man, it sounds like you've got all the right stuff behind you. Anyway, I can tell you now, for the guys that don't know that area, it's steep up and it's steep down, and there's some scrambling shit going on there. So it is tough, it really is tough. And hey, I'll be watching this weekend now that I know you're taking part as well. I didn't realize you were actually taking part. So I'll be watching, and obviously we're looking out for Tony as well, Tony McCann. I think she's won it a few times there. So
I think I might be racing more against Tony than against the lead males, but we'll see.
Yeah, look,
if I can beat Tony, I'll call it a win.
Yeah, no, she's phenomenal. She really is. She's a great athlete. I want to touch on something else, and again, it just comes back to kind of the theme of my show here as the unlikely triathlete. And again, no disrespect to anyone on that. It's what I'm trying to chase down. But and the only reason I bring it up is really for the inspiration, because people tend to think that guys that are at the top of the world or the top of their game, world champs, they've won all kinds of things, they were just always that good, right? So you've walked a road, you've had to train. Obviously, you've got a massive natural ability that you discovered at an early stage in life. But there's a number of races that you've had where you've certainly had challenges, a couple of DNFs over the years. But you come back and you bounce back from those. I mean, I've got athletes that have trained for their first ever race. It's a short one. They have a fall, or they get an injury, or they go in for an operation or something, and the whole world comes to an end, And you've got to try and build them up from that again. So perhaps you could give us, to me, those are learning experiences, and how do you get the right mindset to take it as a learning and an advancement tool rather than a negative, like, oh shit, I didn't make that one.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one, and obviously for me, doing it as a professional is an added dynamic to it. That it's how I make a living. It's not just a hobby, but that's kind of what I've ended up doing, is taking my hobby and my passion and turning it into my job. So I'm very grateful on one end of it, but it also puts a lot more pressure on the events. Outside of just going out and competing and enjoying the physical nature of it. And I mean, ironically, that's probably what you should be focusing on, even as a professional. It's just the enjoyment factor, why you chose to do this in the first place, because it is just inherently a very difficult sport. And at the end of the day, there's generally, maybe a lot more sad stories out there than the one or two athletes who did well. So I do try to keep that like all relative in my mind. But yeah, more recently, I've actually had a lot more DNFs, which has been a pretty challenging thing to kind of navigate and overcome and refocus and, take the positives that you can from it and move forward. But yeah, I think it's just important to realize, or to like go back to the reason why you chose to do this in the first place. And just one bad result doesn't define you as an athlete or as a human being. And it's just a stepping stone to hopefully having some more successful races in the future. And yeah, I think it's a continuous battle that even I face from race to race, and whether it be sickness or injury or whatever was the reason that took you out. So hopefully you can learn the lessons that generally, when you look back in hindsight, there's always a few lessons that you can take from it, even if the race itself didn't go well, and hopefully use that in the preparation for your next event. In 2023, I ended up getting a penalty on the bike during the race at the Ironman 70.3. The Ironman World Championships in Nice. I was lying in third position during the bike leg, and we were going up a really big climb, and like sort of the switchback section of the course, I got a little bit too close to the athlete in front of me, and the referee believed that I was committing a drafting infringement and gave me a penalty. A blue card at the time was a 5-minute penalty, like stand down penalty. And definitely threw my toys out the cot and wanted to just, quit right there and then. I was having, the best day of my life in the sport of triathlon, lying in a podium position at a world championship event, and got handed a penalty. And I very easily could have like lost it mentally and just decided, F this, I'm gonna stop and move on and do something else. But managed to kind of regroup mentally, and I served my penalty and got going again, and fought my way back to 7th on the day. So I'm pretty proud of that, and looking back, it's something that I can be pretty proud of in my career, as opposed to if I decided to just stop and throw the towel, and it's probably something I would have regretted to this day.
Oh, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head there again. It's one of the things I put across a lot when I sort of trying to motivate people is just remember the why when you're stuck or you can't anymore. And it's amazing how often that comes up, and especially with guys at your level of the sport, and by mentioning that, I certainly don't ask you that question to put you on the spot, because I know it's clear that a guy like you finds a way through every time, But people need to realize that that's just a human struggle everyone has. And you don't have to be anyone
Yeah, it's
elite to get
certainly
through
not
that.
any easier for us than it is for anyone else. I think some people look at the pro field and be like, "Oh, it's so easy for them," but it's definitely we face the same challenges that the age group field face, and we just have learned to maybe navigate it in a better and more constructive way. But we still definitely have those mental challenges along the way to the small little success highlights that you see on Instagram.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, from my perspective, I would say, if anything, it could be a little harder, because you got that, as you say, it's what you do for a living. And there's a whole different dynamic to that, to you guys having to compete and complete. So, yeah, I would say it's probably a little harder to get back on that horse, so to speak. Um, yeah, so I'm going to scroll down on my laptop here because I made a couple of notes. I want to get it wrong here. So, and this may or may not be a correct quote, but something that I've highlighted here. So it says, and I know we touched on it earlier on. So Brad often talks about being humble, being motivated by growth rather than just wins, recognizing the sacrifices, the grind, and the community aspect of the triathlon. So, I mean, you covered all of that before, as well. And I think for the unlikely triathletes out there, it might be a bit of repetition on that one. But to me, those are like really good core values. When you put aside the training and the sport and the competition and the earning of the money and all that kind of stuff, I think it does. It all comes back down to that, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, mental health around the world is a big challenge at the moment, and a sort of a talking point. I think social media has got a massive influence on this as well. And, people tend to get caught in this cycle of doom scrolling and watching everybody else's life pass by on social media platforms, and sort of judge themselves accordingly. And why they all having these amazing lives, why can't I? And if you can just put that away, take on something like a triathlon or a trail run or mountain bike race or something like that. Just focus on yourself for a little bit, and try and enjoy that stepping stone journey. Of the result is all good and well if you are up there and competitive with the front of the race. That's great, but in the end of the day, getting out there, waking up early when that alarm clock goes off for the race, and those pre-race nerves, it's kind of like it's kind of like a bit of the meaning of life in some ways. Of what else, why are you choosing to work the job that you do, or earn the income that you do, or try and make a little bit more money, when you get those endorphins going during a race, the pre-race nerves and anxiety, the race itself, the physical aspect of it, and pushing yourself to beyond physical boundaries that you thought you had, and completing the race with everybody has a few war stories at the end of the day to tell of the adversity that they faced during the race. And you go to bed that night feeling that you accomplished something for the day, which I think is a massive positive, a net positive, regardless if the race went well or not. You chose to take on the challenge, and I'm sure you learned a lot about yourself along the way. So yeah, I try and encourage as many people to get involved in sport, whatever that sporting challenge may be. It doesn't have to be triathlon; it can be anything. But having those challenges to kind of test and bring a bit of adversity into your life is I think is a net positive.
Brilliant. And I think you're quite right. It's the bragging rights and the war stories go a long way, man. You know what I mean? And I say bragging rights in a healthy sense. You know what I mean? Because that gets
Yeah,
other people
absolutely.
going. I mean, I remember my first 70.3. I was like everyone else, shitting myself. Haven't done it right. And you turn up at race and you start seeing what everyone else is doing. Oh, I haven't got one of those. Should I have done this? Oh shit, it's too late then. But I remember from the first 1 or 2 or 3 races that just that horrible gut feeling. That's why those queues outside those little portaloos are so long. It's that same feeling everyone else is having. But as I say, I raced last weekend in Weymouth, and I had taken 2 years off because I'd just been beating myself up, training and chasing too hard to try and qualify for world champs as an age grouper. And I'm still going to chase that down. But I took a year off, which very quickly became 2 years. But going back to Weymouth to race, unfortunately, the swim was cancelled. It's just one of those things. But I didn't have any of that, man. I was absolutely just loving being on the start line again. And okay, so I'm an older bloke. I'm 56 now, so I'm on the age groupers, right? But there were lots of younger first-timers in their 20s that were just absolutely shitting themselves, as you say, And just talking to them was so cool because it kind of calmed them down a bit. I'm not saying I did anything fancy, but I just loved that whole vibe. Like, I'm not that guy I'm excited and I can feel the adrenaline's there and I'm ready to go. But that whole thing, man, it comes down, it's community again, right? And you'll get to coach and train with, and when you're out training or when you're out racing, it's almost it's not quite as extreme as the rock climber with no ropes. All his focus is on what's happening on his fingertips, which means nothing else in the world matters at that particular time. And I find when you go back to the mental health thing, because I'm a very huge advocate of that, because I'm a sufferer myself. I manage it and I look after it, and I'm one of those guys who's lucky enough to have been able to overcome and manage those things. And it's something I probably will build more and more into my podcast as we go, because I don't like to harp on it, but it's one of the most valuable things, man, sport, And I like to think all roads lead to triathlon eventually, because someone will do a park run and a couch run or a something, and they're going to meet someone who swims and bikes and does it. Before you know it, they're doing a sprint, and then they're doing triathlon. So all roads lead to triathlon. I'm going to say that. But absolutely, man, you get out there, like-minded people. You're getting away from the doom scrolling, and you're getting away from watching all that rubbish on TV that goes on for hours. I'm not saying don't watch TV at all, but get away from that. Get outside, because, and my missus will tell you, a lot of the times in my tougher days when I was struggling, she'd often say to me, hey man, go for a run or go for a ride or go for an open water swim. And I knew she was right, and I can tell you now, there's no better medicine than that. There's no better, you don't come back 100% fixed, but your whole mindset changes. And it's absolutely those natural endorphins, So there's so many reasons to get out there and do something versus the handful of really poor reasons and excuses why not to. It's a no-brainer, man. And that's the whole thing of the show. I'm truly passionate about it. I just want to get people off their asses. So we're riding on from the couch to the finish line, or from the boardroom to the finish line, because that's another bunch of guys that are just too busy. I run a company with 10,000 people, or whatever the case is. I'll never have the time. Hey man, I'll get you across that finish line. Come and talk to me. That's my whole thing. I just want everyone across the board to know that not only can you do it, but it's going to change your life. It's going to benefit you in all other aspects. And I've yet to come across someone like yourself who I've spoken to that don't in some way agree with that,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm very privileged that I managed to find the sport at an early age. And, it's kind of what I've done my entire adult life. So it's almost like I don't know any different, but when I do see people struggling, it's generally my kind of go-to self-help book is, go and do a bit of sport, a bit of movement, even if it's just a walk through the vineyards, bit of fresh air, generally changes your perspective on things and challenges that seemed incredibly daunting when you're sitting on the couch in a dark room. All of a sudden it seems a lot lighter. And I know I'm a big advocate in just like making the first step, because generally procrastination is kind of as a compounded decision-making process that, you almost too hesitant to make that first step, that the challenge or the thing seems so daunting all of a sudden, that just making that first step kind of makes the second step a lot easier. So if you bring it back to sport, it's definitely just take that first step, dive into the deep end, go and do that mountain bike race or trail race or triathlon that you have been threatening to do for a while. Just put your name on the start list, even if you feel incredibly unfit. Generally having that goal gets you out the door and gets you to just live a bit more of a healthier life and hopefully bring some more positivity and light into your days.
100%, man. I think that's it. I did a podcast where we went into this a bit previously, where I think not everybody's got that ability to take that first step. And I think that's where guys like myself, and I'm nothing special. I just tell people I'm Joe Average, right? But I've been through that, and I know what's worked for me, and I know what's helped me get over the line. So I feel like guys like myself have a responsibility to those other people to just help give them that nudge, not to bully them into it or convince them or otherwise, but just to maybe give them some tools to be able to overcome that and to take that first step and to get going. So I guess that's kind of where my passion and my drive is, just to get those people moving, you know.
Very cool.
Brad, man, I'm totally honored at having you on here today. I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy and you got your head in your race this weekend. I'm definitely going to follow up on that. It's been absolutely valuable having you on, man. You know, guys like you will influence and do influence the right people, and you just give some substance to my little old podcast that I'm trying to get off the ground. And I have no doubt it's going to change lives, you know. And it's not because of what little old Rob Hardstone's doing. I'm just trying to open that world to people and just get people to appreciate and understand that they can do, you know. And it's really cool to have a pro on the show because it just gives us a different end of the spectrum to it all, you know. It's all doable. It's all possible. So any last kind of words of wisdom? Give me a punchline sentence that's going to get my couch potatoes out there and get their running shoes on.
Oh man, I'm not good with the one-liners, but no, thank you very much, Rob, for having me on and all the hard work that you seem to be doing behind the scenes to bring a little bit of positivity to not only your clients but to friends and family. And appreciate you having me on. Hopefully, I can help and inspire one or two more people to get involved and join your Unlikely Triathlete community. It sounds like a lot of fun, and hopefully I get to come and do some training or racing with you guys at some point in the future. But yeah, I think just as we said, taking that first step is generally the thing that's going to probably change your life. So it seems harder than what it actually is, and if we can kind of be there with you to take that first step, it's all the better.
Just do it, man. Just do it. I have, you know, it's still early days for me. This is all quite new stuff for me, you know, and I quite openly and proudly say that because we all start somewhere, right? It's a new venture, but on my little social media clips and things that I do and my little motivational videos and all that kind of thing for my coaching, I always finish it off with my sort of punchline has become never stop moving, you know, and there's so many different aspects to that. You can think, oh yeah, never stop moving. But if you sit and really chew on that, you know, there's lots of different aspects to it. So yeah, I always like to finish off with that. I say never stop moving, man. Bradley, once again, man, thanks a million. And of course, to all our listeners and viewers, we'll put all kinds of links and things. I'll chat with you later down the line. If there's anything you want to put up there, Bradley, I don't know if there's any kind of charities that you guys follow or support or organizations that you'd like to put in our show notes at the end. I'll be in touch with you and we'll hook those up. But yeah, hey, to all you other guys out there, just remember to do all the like and share stuff that I can never remember what to say. And of course, subscribe to the channels and watch the space. Appreciate your time, man. Really, all the best of luck this weekend. And thanks for inspiring, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Thanks for having me on, man.